Oh, hello, fancy meeting you here. It's so nice to see ya. Are you ready to survive the wastelands? Then you'll need to bring your shotgun, your axe, and of course, your knife for your sharp wit, if you get my drift. Hey, whoa. Hold on there. Don't forget to pick up your Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Yeah, gearing up is as easy as connecting your Battle.net account to Twitch. And after that, watching the Overwatch Contenders Summer Series will contribute to your drop progression, letting you claim your own wasteland-ready Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Oh, that's right. It's time to rampage. Now, get out there and slay with the Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Okay, take care now. See you in chat.
It's the heart and soul of our sport, where these players strive to become who they're truly meant to be.
No more break, it's time for action. Welcome to Overwatch Contenders.
And welcome back, everybody. We're hopping into our second match today. Ataraxia up against Team PEPS to round things out. And honestly, I'd apologize for the long break if it didn't mean that Ataraxia was playing triple real close, going all the way to 5 maps in that series. They didn't take it, but credit where credit's due. What an impressive performance for a team that really needs them.
Yeah, it really is important for both of these teams at the moment, given their positionings and standings, that they're able to find wins. And if not wins, that they're close matches, so that map differential at least allows them a better position to potentially be able to break into playoffs.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of concentricity around the middle of the board right now in EU Contenders. And so map differential is likely going to come into play when you're talking about being on the very edge there, because there's a lot of teams with matching score lines that have matching records that need to find some way to differentiate themselves. Notably, these two teams who are matching in virtually every single way. Both of them are coming off of a loss in recent time. But that being said, PEPS took a tough one up against EXO, being 0-3'd by them earlier on.
Yeah, they may be matching in terms of that, but they're definitely not going to be matching in terms of compositions that they've been playing. Ataraxia have been having some weird compositions. Is probably the best way that I want to put it. A lot of Torbjorn coming through from them. So interesting to see whether or not that's going to be sticking around, or whether or not we're going to be seeing something a little bit different from them, given the performance that we saw from them yesterday, where they ran up against Raspberry Racers, as we can have a look and see what the updated standings is going to look at now that we do have the information on how those two games went down. Twisted Mind still sitting entirely undefeated at the top of the pack, but like you said, a lot of teams very much clustered around about the middle with a scoreline of 3 and 4. And so for a lot of these teams, it's going to be very important that map differential is as clean as possibly can be.
I mean, look at that. -3, -3, -4, -5, -6, -4. Like, all those teams are all contending, and the line stops, the buck stops at number 8 there. So Sheer Cold currently are in, but let's be real, that's very much likely to change in the coming matches as things shake up. But this one, like we said, is the important one. And for Team PEPS, I think it's a tricky match to play. Obviously, a team that has a lot that they're bringing. They're trying to bust this meta open. They're trying to play something different. They've brought that Torbjorn, like you said, to a lot of places. But I wouldn't put PEPS outside of a similar vein. They're obviously not trying to break the meta in a lot of ways, but they're certainly playing to a lot of their comforts, especially with Molfig on that tank.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a lot of Molfig Ramatra, a little bit as well of the hybrid Sombra, sometimes mixed in with the Sojourn. Naga has been breaking out the Echo, which is always a standout for his DPS performance, and that is going to have to be something that potentially we do see being countered by that Torbjorn turret. Right now, the fact that the Torbjorn turret really prioritizes who the Torbjorn tries to shoot at is going to have a lot easier time being able to deal not just with the Echo, but potentially with the Mercy pocket as well. So you can take the Mercy out of the way and then go for the DPS that normally accompanies that.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how that swap actually changes a lot of things, right? Traditionally, the Torbjorn is okay into these rushes, right? Offers at least a lot of damage to throw at that tank should you need it. But it's usually teched in to try and play against these Winstons. Same goes for the Echo, right? You want to be throwing a lot of damage down onto these Winstons, but seeing as Team PEPS are a team that likes to avoid it for the most part, right? Opting for the D.Va, opting for the Sigma and the Ramatra where they can, it's going to be a little bit trickier for, I believe, Ataraxia to figure out how they want to apply their special picks.
We've seen a lot of Torbjorn from them. We've seen a little bit of Sombra too, so potentially they're going to try and break Molfig's D.Va mech with the Sombra pick. It's always a really weird one, right? The D.Va gets a lot of just intel from where the Sombra is because of just the infinite ammo, so you have a really good avenue of being able to spy check. But the Sombra gets to absolutely drain the D.Va mech like it's a battery and supercharge up these EMPs, but again, it comes back to how mobile Team PEPS' composition is going to be. If Naga is on the Echo, if Hybrid does decide to go on to something like the Sojourn, you're going to have to choose one particular target and everyone jumps them with an EMP rather than trying to hit full squad one and go.
A lot of opportunities here for counterplay, but let's take a look at the other side. Ataraxia is bringing a lot to the table in their own right. I know you were getting hyped about a potential Orisa meta coming up not too long from now. I think there's one person captaining that charge. Helve is ready and rearing to go, willing to bring out the Orisa on any given day, but that being said, if it comes in the future, it is certainly going to be a power pick for them. Lining up behind them, though, Lauren, Astor, Gala, and Natlux. Natlux especially shines for me in this roster and the versatility that they're going to be able to provide and what they're able to do to kind of solidify some of the weirder compositions that they bring to the table.
Yeah, I think Ataraxia, like you said, is a team that in the future is only going to be able to get stronger. So for them, they need to make it into the top 8, right? Whether or not we do actually see a patch change up, we don't yet know if we're going to be playing playoffs on the current patch or if it's going to be going for something a little bit closer to the live, which obviously has things like the Soldier, massive buff, but also that Orisa buff that we literally talked to Jkaru about after he was able to win, and he was saying that Orisa could be definitely one of those picks that does start to creep into some more of these compositions. And like you mentioned, Helve is probably going to be in EU the player that honestly benefits the most if we do see that Orisa patch go through onto Contenders. So for Ataraxia, it's all about the here and now. They have to be able to perform to be able to qualify into the top 8 so that they can properly take advantage of having such a major Orisa specialist in their ranks.
To start off on that performance, we're taking things over to Ilios to open things up. And this is certainly an interesting map, a map that has traditionally been fantastic for the current meta and all the teams that want to run Winston. But we've got two teams whose least favorite thing is doing exactly that. So I think it makes for an interesting shakeup. Any other day, I'd be like, oh, yeah, another Ilios pick. Good job, teams. Real creative. But now they've got my interest peaked. I want to know what they're cooking.
I mean, potentially the D.Va from Mulfig, right? We've seen dive still come through from some of these teams. If they don't want to run that Winston, they will run the D.Va. You have the boosters to be able to navigate around the environmental death pit. That is just slap bang in the middle of, well, Lighthouse too. If you're running that D.Va, you have a lot of movement to be able to navigate successfully between the low ground and the high ground to be able to properly apply pressure, not just to the enemy team's backline, but also to keep their DPS in check. And also, if we do see the Echo pick come through from Naga, I would be expecting it to occur on parts of this map in particular.
Oh yeah, I mean, Lighthouse has been kind of an echo spotting zone for some time now, but it's spread itself more and more across every map as we begin to see more teams shift their focus from tank to backline and the other way around as well, right? It's more matchup dependent. They want to be countering playstyles more than they want to be doing specific compositions. You have the opportunity to attack the backline or attack the front line, but when you've got players like Naga who bring that echo to the table, I really want to see us pressuring down tanks, and Helve especially needs to be not having much fun this game if PEPS want to be in a good position. Yeah,
that is sort of the be-all of this echo, right? You have to try and identify one specific target and make them not be able to play Overwatch. It's a horrible thing to say, it's a horrible strategy to do, but it is genuinely the Echo's best bet. A lot of the time you want to try and go for those squishies purely because of just the damage burst that Echo has. A lot of the time you don't actually need to be able to act off of a dive. If your tank is just being a distraction, you've got an opening to be able to look for just primary into stickies, into laser beam, especially with a mercy pocket. Zap, bam, one person's gone and you move on to the next, but you can absolutely use the Echo to be a mosquito, a super powered mosquito, to be able to just keep these tanks in check.
Let us know what you think. Is Team PEPS gonna focusing beam Echo Ataraxia into Oblivion or Ataraxia? Will they take some of that momentum from the strong match that they just had against Triple Esports and toss it Team PEPS' way, seeing them unable to defeat them? Let us know. Like we said, it's a hyper-critical match to the standings for both of these teams. Map differential, the game win is massive for either of them. This really decides a lot.
Yeah, and honestly, figuring out what your opponent is going to run at you with also is going to decide a lot in control points. If you misread the composition that the enemy's going to run out with, a lot of the time you just have to throw the glove in for the first fight, go back, reset your composition, and that means you're going to be behind in terms of not just point per control, but also ultimate charge as well. So really glad to see that Pastor is going to be starting off strong, immediately sticking with this Torbjorn, anticipating an echo to come through, but it's not from Naga. It's from Hybrid.
Yeah, this is a little bit backwards considering what we're used to, but yeah, I think it makes perfect sense, right? Hybrid traditionally. It's again, we don't see Tracer from Hybrid that often, so Hybrid's got a decent echo. Yes, Naga's is fantastic, but I think this is maybe a little bit more comfortable for what the team wants to do. Ilios well does, of course, welcome Monkey being the primary tank for either of these teams. It's kind of too good to pass up on this map in particular, but that won't, like you said, stop Pastor from teching in that Torbjorn. Focusing down that Sombra immediately, kind of taking the teeth away from the dive initially by Ataraxia. PEPS have been completely wounded on their first attempt.
Hybrid's not really being able to find the opening either. Lauren gets focused down, but immediately the couch dive is there from help, and Team PEPS just don't get an inroad.
They'll try again. They're looking for some sort of re-engage here, but Ataraxia are doing a great job of playing positionally around this Torbjorn and setting themselves up defensively after the first pick that they've gotten. Unfortunately, playing defensively has allowed Team PEPS to come back in full strength with 5 members for what has been a pretty successful dive in taking down Gala, but not too much following that. Some great trades from the DPS line and the strong damage output of the Torbjorn allow Ataraxia to hold on to the point.
It's not just the strong damage output, it's also the defensive capability with that Torbjorn E, right? So even though, like you said, you lose Gala, everyone else from Ataraxia just has the sustainability to be able to keep themselves on the point, and Team PEPS don't even manage to find a flip off of taking out that burst heal. As Gala will be coming into the nano boost, Kronos keeping lap, however, as we see the Mercy get hacked down, but no kill to come through just yet.
Things only get worse in theory for Team PEPS, right? They're far ahead in nano boost charge, which should bode well for them, but if they allow this EMP to get up, things will get nasty. Team PEPS wants to win this early with that nano boost. Gets it up, chucks it down onto Hybrid. Hybrid, oh, nearly. Only takes a quick drink. Does get out scot-free. Dives in, I mean, valiantly to say the least. With the duplicate. Can land an anti-nade, but again,
no follow-up
just isn't there.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a tried trick that we've seen from these Echoes duplicating the Ana, but there's just no follow-up after such a good anti-nade, and now you're just being primaled off of the map.
Yeah, that's a sad one to see for Team PEPS. Ataraxia have got them in their pocket right now and still have an EMP to boot. This is a strong map, to say the least, and a dominant one, to say what is probably accurate.
Into EMP, into Molten Core, as we're about to hit into overtime, and all they have to sustain themselves through and look for a fight is Primal Rage. This has to be absolutely perfect and knock at least 2 players into the well if PEPS want to win off of this alone. And he's not even
if it even goes off. Yeah, I was gonna say, seems like a pretty likely target after Molthig spent the jump past her with the nice follow-up. Ataraxia. I mean, what a starting map. What a statement. Up against PEPS, you're starting to understand where that 2-3 that they just pulled off against Triple Esports came from. They are on a tear today.
So many times we've seen a nano-boosted Echo be the catalyst for just absolute decimation of backlines. But even though we see the nano boost come through from Kronos onto Hybrid to allow the Echo to close up the distance, find that really aggressive duplicate onto the Ana, which is played perfectly. It's just so disjointed from what the rest of the team are doing. And from that, their ultimate economy is just absolutely shot through. Team PEPS just aren't ever able to fully find their footing afterwards. Ataraxia do such a good time just playing around the threat of the EMP, the Sombra hack, making it so hard for Morphix to actually be able to find any approach on the dive or follow through to create space for Hybrid. Something has to change for Lighthouse to go in Team PEPS' favor, because they're running into the exact same thing.
Chat better hope it does. 64% of you voted for Team PEPS. A lot of hopeful French people in the chat, Mox, but maybe a lot of disappointed ones after this first map. See, 8 seconds until this point unlocks, and already Team PEPS are taking a pretty forward position on that point. Ataraxia allowing themselves to slowly make their way in once it unlocks, trying to set up afterwards and get that Torbjorn in place, most notably to give an Ana and the Brig something to anchor behind.
Yeah, the problem is that it's not as easy as it is in WoW to set that Torbjorn turret up. Hybrid's been doing a really good job of taking it out early.
Yeah, Hybrid maintaining that high ground, making sure that the rotations aren't clean from Ataraxia, who are still basically all low because the only support up is Natlocks, and now that's gone. Those health bars are far from permanent at this point. Peps has got a first fight, a first point tick, and a first win in the map to finally get comfortable in the match.
This is what they need. They need to be able to dispatch Ataraxia before this team is fully set up, because then they can deal with the Torbjorn turret as it's coming up and building into getting that bigger health pool, something that Hybrid and Naga are very quickly able to take off the table if they so much as look at it for more than 5 seconds. Duplicate's going to be there, but the Mercy isn't.
Oh, that's no bueno. A duplicate does give them another support for a moment. Hybrid eventually goes down after the anti-nade whiffs. Quick point tick here for Ataraxia. Should result in a fight win, but the trades from Naga. Hold up, Molfik's cooking something different here. Also has an Ana in his back pocket somehow. Cronus has gone around the trip around the world. Is there any response for Ataraxia? I don't think the spawns are going to come in nearly soon enough. No.
I think they were so busy trying to set past this Torbjorn turret up to keep Hybrid off of their backs, and unfortunately they just aren't able to contest the space that Team PEPS are able to pick up.
And now that Nano Boost is online for PEPS as well. Into the EMP, there is a strong retort from Ataraxia. Immediately gone into fruition. EMP not spent. Neither is the Molten Core. A lot of resources held here by Ataraxia, but they're not punished for it.
Come on, just a little bit more. No, Digo's gonna survive. The Mercy's too hard to take down, and as a result, Molfig with the jump pack is actually able to take Gala down, and Team PEPS can rubber band back in.
The fortunate part for Ataraxia here is that they're at least getting point percentage in the meantime. The unfortunate thing is that they just lost a fight where they thought they were getting away with a fight where they wouldn't have to spend any ults while PEPS spent one, and instead now they're having to spend big because they're having to retake. They're playing down. This might become a more expensive fight than it was on the initial outlook, even if they win it.
EMP Primal's already used. Rally now as a hack comes down onto Hybrid to stop the Echo from duplicating.
Aleo from Natlox gives them the sustain they need on point, but that Nano Boost needs to hit, and Gala does just get it off onto Helm, which should solidify this fight.
Should solidify the fight, but they also had to expend the Nano Boost. That is 4 for 5 ultimates in one fight invested from Ataraxia. Is, yeah, it may look amazing. Hack onto Hybrid so that he loses that airspace and you're able to take FD God and the Echo down. But unfortunately, you only have a Molten Core, at least it's zoning potential, to keep control of this point. But Hybrid holding onto that duplicate gets a full health replenish, and he's just gonna go threaten that point flip.
Well, they might do a little bit more than threaten if Ataraxia don't engage. They do, though. Eventually oblige to make the jump towards point, using the Molten Core to try and zone PEPS off. But PEPS are happy to not dive onto that point, instead diving onto the backline of Ataraxia, who fight back just that bit. Natlox takes down Molfig, no tank now. The defending team, the flip looks likely from Ataraxia.
Yeah, Duplicate went down onto the Torbjorn for the defensive capability so that you had enough health to be able to sustain into the ultimate. Ataraxia is still able to find the flip, as like you said, who is going to touch? Normally it would be Hybrid, but no! They get separated and taken down before they're within distance to actually tap onto the point during that little offset in coordination. Unfortunately, it results in no overtime.
This has been more than a strong map for Ataraxia. This has been a dominant one. This has been one that they were in control of the entire time. Even in the wins that PEPS did get, it felt measured from Ataraxia. They were always getting something from it, whether it was ultimate economy, better positioning on the map, or a trade in the next fight. They were never coming out empty-handed.
The one time that we did see them stumble was where they went a little too overzealously to take some of those stagger picks onto Team PEPS side, and as a result had to throw 4 out of 5 ultimates into a fight. But they're still able to control that spacing, and as a result, Paso always has that setup that a Torbjorn needs. A defensive Torbjorn zoner is going to find way more value than a Torbjorn that's mid-rotation, because you have to set that turret up in a position yet again where you're potentially going to just get death dropped onto by a pocketed Echo before the turret can do its job and keep that DPS at an arm's length. Really good rotations coming through from Ataraxia, not just to be able to control the high ground, but the point and all of the side channels around it, so that Team PEPS are never able to take full advantage of the fact that they have a Winston, an Echo, and a Tracer, all of whom should be able to find their own entrances into fights to be able to create space for the others. That never occurs because Ataraxia just have such a good grasp of the space.
Yeah, and I think the one being shut down the most has been the Echo. Hybrid was not able to get much of anything done, and it wasn't just that getting shut down because it was more than just an Echo. It was an Echo that was given a Mercy pocket virtually the entire time. So that is 2 players effectively being eliminated by 1 in that Torbjorn because, I mean, they had them in timeout. They were being put in a corner by Pastor on the Torb. It was lethal every single time, no matter how much they tried to fly around it. And so I think some whiteboard racing needs to be done right now. We need to come up with a little bit of a new plan because that Echo is not it. The focusing beam is not getting in and doing what you need it to do. The duplicates have been uneventful, to say the least. We need a lot more from that pick. And fortunately, I think Hybrid's a player that does bring a lot to the table, right? There are a million picks that Hybrid can bring out. We know there's versatility there within this team if they can just find the right tool for the job.
I think the problem that PEPS ran into was they fell for the siren song that is, we can have an Echo and a Tracer at the same time. Because we know, like, in the past against certain other teams, they have played Naga on the Echo and Hybrid on the Sombra. And I don't know why they didn't run a counter Sombra. Maybe they were spooked away by the fact that the Torbjorn turret would be able to counter the Sombra too. But that just retraces back towards it's going to be countering the Tracer as well. Honestly, I would much rather have seen a counter Sombra because every single hack that was coming through from Ataraxia said is measured, calculated. We see Ana just being absolutely blitzed on the spot so quickly it feels like it's off of the back of an EMP, but it's literally just the natural hack because, again, it goes back to the fact that there's just no peel. The Mercy is always there with the Echo, and since the Echo is not finding the value, peeling for the Ana by creating a distraction, such a big focus drawn towards a player that your Ana gets a free pass to be able to play however she likes, however vulnerable she likes on the low ground, that she doesn't become targetable. That never gets set into motion. So moving forward, I'm hoping that we see a little bit more communication and coordination between those 2 separate pockets of PEPS' game plan if they do decide to continue running this Echo.
Yeah, the dives have just got to be more concise, if nothing else, right? Those 3 targets you talked about, the Tracer, the Echo, the Monkey, need to be finding that target, making sure they die instantly, because any time longer than you need to be around that Torbjorn while he's alive is time ill spent, right? It's a lot of damage you're eating when you're close to him, and in theory, the Winston Cop's fine, right? In theory, the Winston Cop has the burst to take down the Ana, take down the Brig effectively, but not quite if you're doing it a little bit too slow. You're going to pay the ultimate price. Being said, the ultimate price that time was a whole map being given the way of Ataraxia. The counter pick is Midtown from Team PEPS to shift things up.
This should be a little bit easier for Team PEPS, especially if they want to try to play towards that Echo. You're going to be able to just collapse over the choke instead of being stuck inside it. But you still have to be concerned about the defensive half, right? That's where the Torbjorn could potentially really come in and ruin your day. As again, there's just so much focus on chokes and low ground and being caught out if you take too long in your rotations. We saw it in the previous series. What happens if a team gets trapped in those rotations time and time again?
Makes you wonder which of these teams is going to be a bigger issue for. What do Ataraxia actually want to bring to the table? Are they set on this Winston pick? What were they running in their previous match up against Triple Esports? Molfig has the flexibility to bring to the table virtually anything, and Midtown is a pretty open map for the teams that want it to be. Is a question of what they think PEPS are going to do as well. I mean, this game has been one of rock, paper, scissors largely. Granted, first map, I mean, Zelios were likely to get that Winston, but as we progress further into the series, the odds of these teams trying something different and then switching to counter one another time and time again is not unlikely.
Yeah, and the good news for Helv as well is like he doesn't really need to flex onto something like the Diva because Pastor can play that Torbjorn. Normally you would say, okay, well, if you're running a Winston and you're having a hard time against an Echo, go something like the Diva, but if you have a Torbjorn keeping that Echo in check, it opens up so much more space for your tank to just have such an easier time. As it is going to be Team PEPS on the defense this time, and there's the flexibility that we wanted to see. Molfig is actually going to be going on the Ramatra, and this is actually a really good tank that I hugely prioritize on Midtown defenses. You think it's hard navigating through a choke and trying to find those rotations safely onto point? Throw in a slowing vortex that can split a team and really punish if a dive isn't well coordinated, and you have a Ramatra defense all bundled up.
Very dangerous. Being said, there's not too much poke, fortunately, for Ataraxia, so getting Gala and Natlox in is maybe slightly easier for that reason, that they're not playing into a Hanzo, that those stray arrows aren't flying, but hacks will be aplenty. Ataraxia start that approach, thus setting up the Torbjorn turret, which, honestly, in its own right, just completely shuts down any hopes of a Sombra flank from ever coming through from PEPS.
There's one vortex he uses. Ataraxia try and put that support through back alley. Hack goes down to help so he can't initiate in the jump, but They've still been able to make it through one rotation.
And how do PEPS plan on shutting off this rotation? And Molfig is nowhere near this side lane that's needed to shut it down when they go for it. Now he finally gets in position, and just in the nick of time as well. It looks like Ataraxia are just getting ready to move, but instead of rotate, they go for the dive from there. It's a really tricky position to posture from, and you see why most teams don't do it. It's an unsuccessful dive, but the smoke and mirrors that go up allow Ataraxia to reposition themselves all the way on point. Now Health has a quite powerful position all the way around this fire truck with Gala on the high ground, virtually uncontested on this Ana. This is a dream come true for Ataraxia, and a beautiful pump fake being made with that initial dive.
This is a dream come true for Ataraxia and a nightmare for Cronus' positioning. Every single time this Ana tries to look in, he's at risk of being antied and slapped.
Health threatening a dive, and EMP just completely nothing. Natlock's fortunately taken down. Molfig alone follows up on the EMP. I have no clue how Molfig was allowed to get on Natlock's and Pastor, or why they were that close to him to begin with. But nevertheless, a win is a win, and an EMP walked into is an EMP walked into by Ataraxia.
Closes the distance, drops the vortex, goes in with the pummel. That's how good Ram is at tempo tanking, as Naga, with the Tracers, just denying Ataraxia these angles to be able to set these rotations safely up. Drops in the pulse bomb, doesn't find a kill, but still denies space. Oh, that's a Sombra found.
Could bite them in the butt here. The Sombra's found, which completely denies the hopes of an EMP play here by Lauren. Does get quickly back into position. They're looking for the Ana, and they don't catch her. They only catch Natlocks, who is kept up right. FD got down though for that EMP. Hybrid dropped PEPS on the back foot here, but they've got plenty of damage, and Naga has been on a tear with this Tracer. Fortunately, there's just nothing to pick up. Molfig does get over to a Mega Pack, but had to use the Nemesis form in order to do so.
Yeah, Cronus was actually able to send the Nano Boost onto Molfig before he got Primal juggled out of line of sight by Health, and as a result, PEPS still have a tank and can still sustain on this point.
It feels like Ataraxia are choosing the wrong times to go for their engagements, if that makes sense, right? They tried to push right when the EMP came up, instead of staying back and pressuring when they had the better position, and then there they try to do the exact opposite, try to hold for too long while it's Team PEPS who was on the back foot. Really tricky timings that they're trying to hit. This time it's not going well for them either. Naga trades their life for Gala, which is well worth it when you consider all the value that Ana was bringing to the table for Ataraxia. Now they're forced to use that rally early on in the fight and a Molten Core, and this is all just to hold the space. Molfig's very comfortable up here on this high ground. Is going to have up an ultimate pretty soon as well, should they want to re-engage with it.
Yeah, they've got EMP. PEPS can go into EMP, and Ataraxia have nothing to counter it.
And again, they try for an engagement while the EMP is up, basically walking into it.
Oh, the ultimate economy. It's so disheveled. Gala getting picked out as they sent Nano Boost. Such a Hail Mary of a play so that Ataraxia didn't have to just get stuck in a choke again without enough time to be able to rotate. Meant that they threw in so many ultimates to try and cement their position on the point that Team PEPS just are able to sustain through all of it, give one tick up, but then come back in with the EMP, and Ataraxia have nothing in the pocket beside an EMP to try and make this push work.
It's difficult even landing that. Dive isn't there to follow up. The EMP came out from Lauren. I don't think it's going to do too much of anything, especially when you talk about the Annihilation being popped by Molfig. This shuts down the last of the push. Ataraxia have been cleaned on Midtown.
It's such an unfortunate position that you find yourself in as a team when you're running dive and you're going up against a Ramatra that isn't even really running the full Ramatra poke composition like you pointed out. They're running a sort of hybrid style of it, ironically enough, and it works perfectly because the Ramatra alongside the Ana have enough presence on the point to anchor it and stop Ataraxia from just being able to directly approach the point itself after that first initial push. They can't really find clean rotations because Hybrid, Naga, and even FD got to a point are just continuing to nip at their ankles and herd and shepherd them into these really rough spots so that those rotations are really long and costly and force you to be able to go after the backline, the true lifeline of this team of Kronos, but he's just always so hard and out of reach for that initial initial dive to come through. And as a result, Ataraxia, when they're actually able to break through those chokes and onto the point, they want to keep themselves situated on it. They want to be able to bunker up so they don't have to go through all that gauntlet yet again when they don't have enough time to be able to survive another push. And they just overinvest in terms of ultimates to try and make up for player absences. And as a result, they're just never able to recover. And it's a full hold from PEPS.
Now the line in the sand's been drawn. Ataraxia have got to match that. They've got a very different composition, though. The dynamic has shifted massively with the inclusion of this Orisa. Now, the game is keeping Team PEPS at arm's length.
Naga is going to be there on the Symmetra at the beginning. Might decide to actually stick on it.
The opposite of good.
Nope, there we go. Goes back to the spawn, picks up the Tracer. And without Lauren, this team can honestly just brute force their way onto point.
Back it up. Yeah, no, this is... I mean, this backline's interesting. I like the Kiriko Bap is
Oh, I don't
cool.
know.
Well, it's cool for like 5 seconds. Yeah, no, this map's over. PEPS should be able to push this one through. That is if they're not too patient. They need to be quick. We gotta start jumping on the team that we just took 2 people away from. Team PEPS, you gotta keep going forward. No, they've stopped up.
They can't.
They took a water break. They took a bathroom break at the fire truck when they absolutely couldn't. They were 5v3.
They got hit by a javelin from Helve, and as a result, they got stunned out of the initial aggression that they wanted to show on that point. Another stray javelin from Helve actually lands onto Kronos. And
oh my god.
That is going to be Team PEPS getting stuck in choke.
Oh my goodness. Okay, don't get me wrong. Helve's good. Helve's been hitting these spears. There is, like, no excuse for dropping that one, though. Yeah. Every advantage in the world. A pick literally walking out of spawn is handed to you, and then a backline pick immediately after. A fumbling of the bag for sure, but props to Helve for taking advantage of it.
Yeah, well, we're going to actually see Naga now swap onto that Mei to try to just give any agency some Ulfix that when he closes the distance, you can wall someone up, you can isolate them, you can punish the fact that this Orisa is without a Lucius, so it's going to be slow to rotate. Problem is that Ataraxia have control of that choke. They're going to be able to have control of the point itself as well as Lauren setting up on the off angle for the EMP.
Poke already going down, pressuring Helve, like you said, has no real quick way of disengaging, but does have a fire truck to hide behind, and Gala to help get some kills. Gala, in their hands a little dirty, doesn't have a TP out. You're starting to wonder what the plan was there. This is the team now to follow. It's been a 1-for-1 trade. Still anchored behind Helve, though Ataraxia have a lot of tools to take this fight, and EMP, most notably of them, shuts down Naga and Cronus and puts an end to things.
Ataraxia just making sure that Team PEPS aren't able to find themselves comfortable. I like what Team PEPS are doing, however. They're allowing Ataraxia to burn through ultimates, and then they're using one of their own. Molfic now with that position set up goes for the Annihilation to be able to keep himself safe, uses the shield, breaks through the Tourbillon turret, and now we should see Team PEPS be able to push on to Ataraxia, who are missing players.
Nope.
But Lauren takes Hybrid down, and Team PEPS are going to be missing one of the crucial pieces of engagement. The EMP is not going to be available, and Ataraxia get a lifeline to be able to regroup.
Yeah, well, I think the big thing is just, like, Cronus and Naga take 9 years to walk back from spawn. It's quite a ways for an Ana and a Mei coming all the way from there, and so they're just not able to capitalize. Now 4 ultimates versus 4 ultimates, though. It's going to be a bit of a kitchen sink fight. All looking for another backline pick, is able to find it. But both teams holding all 4 ultimates holstered.
Terror Surge can be cancelled by the Sombra pretty easily, though. The problem is that Hybrid's not there.
Shots out, the ultimate cascade begins to come through. Ataraxia looking for an initial set of 2, and they both connect. The Molten Core, along with the Amplification Matrix, pair up beautifully on the small room.
We are about to have an overtime panic ultimate investment duel. FD God now goes on to the Lucio to try and ferry Team PEPS to the point as quickly as possible. Lauren's literally just going to show up and try and poke and keep this team occupied so that Ataraxia get more time off of the clock.
Ultimate's still lined up for PEPS. This EMP has to hit from Hybrid. Hybrid jumping in, nearly gets spy checked. Is looking for a backline, can't find a solid EMP target. Is dropped low, forced to translocate out just before overtime. That buys time for Naga to go down. It's all falling apart for PEPS. It seems so simple. All you had to get was 50% of a point A, but now it's Molfig alone on the point. Hybrid comes in and saves the day at the end, but a counter EMP from Lauren might just do it. Helve trying to one-up the tank on the opposing side. Naga coming in with a Hail Mary of a Blizzard. 1v2 versus the tank versus the supports is Helve. Just needs a miracle as the DPS stream on in. The sustain for Team PEPS might have been just enough. That's one tick Just a little bit more percentage. A Lucio streaming onto the point. A Blizzard to keep them off. Ataraxia have no way to take this one through. Gala can TP in all they wish. But PEPS squeak one across the finish line here on Midtown.
Oh, that is a big sigh of relief for a PEPS fan, but it's not clean. Well, let's be honest, it's not clean. It's not a great showing for this team. It took them so long, so many rotations, so many angles that they tried to approach, all of which at every single turn were just shut down. A lot of it really just by outplayed with the Sombra from Lauren, but also Halve and Pasta just being an absolute menace. Gala, yes, sometimes over-aggressively taking fights on the Kiriko, but still keeping Team PEPS sequestered up in these spaces where the Orisa is free, even without a Lucio speed boost, to be able to run the Ramatra down, use the Javelin when that Nemesis form is invoked, so the pummels aren't able to land onto those targets, and Annihilation isn't able to be supercharged up, so that Team PEPS can't just use that one zoning ultimate from the Ramatra to be able to buy themselves so much percentage on point.
And again, this is a push that should have been over after the first fight. Not even the first fight. The first, like, engagement. The first steps out of spawn. This should have been Team PEPS' map, but it took them quite a long time. Like you said, it wasn't clean, but a point's a point. And honestly, in a game that is turning into a dogfight like this one, I think PEPS will take anything they can get.
Yeah, absolutely. You take whatever you can. It's not a draw, it's a PEPS map, and that takes us up 1-2-1. But I think we're in for an incredibly scrappy series. I really do think we're in for an incredibly scrappy series between both of these two teams, because both of them just have vastly different play styles which really clash quite insurmountably with each other, right? Pastor on that Torbjorn just slows down every single movement that PEPS tried to make play, and then PEPS, all they just need is one good fight to be able to put themselves onto that point and anchor and bunker up with that Ramatra Brawl composition, but they're only ever able to put themselves into that position once, and thank goodness for them, they have ultimates coming in to be able to stop any potential regroup that could have come through from the Ataraxia side.
That was a nicely played map, and honestly, I don't know what we're getting next. The next map pick, the compositions, it all feels up in the air. These teams have offered up so much. So you know what? We'll just spin the wheel, and when we come back, we'll have answers for you.
You like solving problems.
Problems like how to stop that Tracer from deleting your backline. I know just what you're thinking. You'll bring a turret. But y'all can't solve all your problems by simply bringing an extra friend to the battlefield. For that, you need the Contenders Torbjorn skin. Solve your problems by connecting your Battle.net account to Twitch. After that, watching Overwatch Contenders Summer Series will contribute to your drops progress, letting you claim your Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin. Even your turret gets an upgrade. Warning, the Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin does not come with extra or upgraded turrets. Build instructions will not be provided. By picking Torbjorn, you waive a claim towards any destroyed turrets, no refunds, no exchanges, and no take-backsies.
Welcome back, everybody. We spun the wheel and it's kind of come up blank. Unfortunately, nobody's decided anything. We'll have a map in a couple seconds, but honestly, these teams feel like they can play anything under the sun at this point, at least in terms of not playing meta, because the Winston has been something that both of them have wanted to avoid as much as they can.
I mean, you can't really blame them, right? It feels like both of these teams don't really find the Winston to their strong point, and a lot of the time when we do talk to players in the interviews and say, like, why is so many people having trouble running the Winston, what we hear the most is that it's the hardest composition to actually be able to properly play purely because of how much coordination it requires. If everything isn't running absolutely perfectly, if your two DPS aren't on the exact same page of when to jump, who to jump, where to jump, that window of opportunity when the Winston actually makes that approach really quickly shuts, and you find yourself incredibly vulnerable because when the Winston jumps into an enemy team, the enemy team see it as opportunity number one to be able to go for the back line because one huge avenue of peel is going to be down.
I mean, it's a tricky comp to execute on. And I think a lot of teams, especially in the EU, are recognizing, okay, look, we're having trouble playing up with the Winston composition. It creates a lot of matches that are very striated, very one-sided, very one team is consistently better than the other at this composition. So they're looking to the drawing board to try and change things up. And that's where we get kind of innovative teams like these, coming in with new tanks, coming in with new DPS, trying to find new ways, maybe not necessarily to hard counter things, but to work around them and offer up problems for those teams above them to solve, so that they can create some more nuance in their match than just kind of playing a Winston composition that they've consistently been losing on for some time now, you know?
It's always the sort of question of weighing up how much risk and reward is available.
Absolutely.
You want to play the composition that has the lowest amount of risk, but the highest amount of reward. And the Winston composition has the highest amount of risk. So obviously, if you can run something else, you're going to be able to take that opportunity. But heading towards someone like Route 66, we could potentially see the Winston come through. It's definitely one of those where you want to be able to have a tank that can challenge the high ground, especially when you're trying as an attacking team to be able to move past that initial first corner of the payload. But we also see teams being able to circumvent that with something like a Diva.
That they might as we head over to Route 66. Couple of changes for these teams in terms of where they want to go, but compositions are likely to stay the same. There is, fortunately, I think for PEPS, a fair bit of dive to be played here, as they've been the ones kind of hovering that Winston a bit more on Helv. Molfig's the big question mark here, though. Do we see that Diva come out?
Yeah, I think the big question mark as well is what DPS are we going to see if PEPS do opt for the dive? Because you can just run the Tracer Sombra. You can run something like a hit scan to be able to take advantage of the high ground that we've talked about, or you can field towards something like the Echo, but you have to be pretty wary of the Echo, given how dominant Pastor was at being able to shut it down entirely with the Torbjorn on that first map.
Ready for battle.
Picks come in, Helv hovering, and Orisa walks out with it. Now things get exciting. Staying away from that Winston. Molfig hovering a Diva as well. The DPS lines all over the place. Hybrid hinting at a Hanzo. One that, I mean, we know Hybrid could do some real work with Mux.
Could be a hint, could purely just be to be able to use that Sonic for a little bit of early recon, purely because they're probably not really knowing what to expect from Ataraxia either. Whether or not it's going to be a super close hold towards train carriage, whether or not they're going to be holding towards tunnels, something like a May. If it is going to be an Orisa, or if it is going to be a dive, it's something you want to know as quickly as possible so you can formulate a game plan for what your DPS run with.
One. Attackers incoming.
DP out. Hybrid throws out that Sonic Arrow. Spots the team comp, and what are the swaps now? May, Lucio, Ram's coming back out. We're keeping this Hanzo on deck, though. Cronus swaps over as well to a Baptiste. So a full rush composition with a lot of damage behind it from Hybrid's Hanzo in particular. I think is going to offer up a lot of teeth and a lot more damage than even Hell might be able to handle.
It's not just that you have to worry about, it's also Lauren's position on that Sombra. The fact that you can get caught out by the arrows from the Hanzo in stealth, as well as just that immense pressure with the Storm arrows pushing onto this Orisa. That's such a huge hitbox.
Shots ring through, Health force back. Hart now cleared the first corner already. We start to expect a little bit of contest earlier than this. You want to have an opportunity to hold that corner, but they never did. Because they gave up that corner, they gave up this rotation as well. Ataraxia missed their opportunity to defend in a lot of ways. PEPS now aggress onto the high ground, push the supports down, and yes, they're up one, but Ataraxia positionally aren't in a great place.
Yeah, the Orisa's too clunky. They don't want to give up the high ground because they know once health drops off of it, you're not going to be able to easily go back onto it. So as a result, they do hold on to the corner a little bit too long, and Team PEPS are past it.
PEPS now still have to aggress a little bit further towards the likes of Ataraxia, who have a corner to hide in. It may not be the initial one they were set up with. It's quickly running out of space. They're shoved further and further into it, compacted into a tiny cube is Natlox by the hydraulic press that is right now Team PEPS.
Lauren just
This
didn't have
battlefield,
EMP.
look at how separated all of Ataraxia is. I mean, Helv is light years away from Gala, Pastor, and Lauren. An EMP comes out, but I mean, that was desperation at best. Pastor's able to get one, but PEPS are the only team that's actually grouped up as anything resembling a team at this moment.
We're gonna have Dragon Strike as
Wait,
well
what
from
is this?
Hybrid to be able to deal with the
What is
Animatrix
this?
from that
Kitsune
one.
Rush!
As everyone just sort of backs
What is
up.
happening? Ataraxia is falling apart. Gala's, it is a miracle Gala got one there. But Ataraxia are playing as 5 players, each attempting to in turn go 5v1. This is absurd. And why is it working? Why is it working?
Team PEPS not focusing the Orisa. They're trying to go for the squishy so that they can deal with the Orisa once the tank has lost its legs, and as a result, Helv just gets to cut through everybody. Now looks with the Amp Matrix has the sustainability to keep the tank healed up and the payload stuck in position, and Team PEPS now have to approach yet again, but this time, even though they have ultimates to play with, Ataraxia have ults too.
I'm like stun locked from that last engagement. The EMP whiff, the Kitsune Rush whiffed, and then they still won.
And
Never in my life.
Before Buff Orisa patch.
Yeah. Team PEPS though. Solid chance. Same rotation around here. A lot of ultimates like you said. A Blizzard very well could catch them off. Zoning ultimate is first used by Ataraxia though. Throwing down a Molten Core and Annihilation is the answer to keep Molfig upright. We're set an Immortality Field as the Terror Surge is used. Hell shut down, so that's the large hurdle gotten over by Team PEPS as they finally push this card over the line.
Not a full team kill. They are spy checking to make sure that Lauren's not able to contest this. Gala is still in the air as well. Good Vortex. Keeps the Kiriko slowed down, so should be able to pick up the checkpoint. As Ataraxia now have a decision to make. Prioritize holding on high ground or try to challenge early to build up ultimates before your Kiriko's in the mix. It looks like they just want to exchange poke.
That'll go pretty well for the team that has that long-range damage coming in from the Torbjorn. Pastor's happy to trade around here with Ataraxia, at least until that cart makes some progress into B. The PEPS is about staying alive as long as they can, making sure they get that consistent progress. Hybrid 70% now to an EMP. If PEPS steps too far, yeah, they're going to walk right into the EMP from Lauren. Gala's there for the follow-up. Same goes for Helv, effectively turning this Orisa into a dive tank. The PEPS have plenty of sustain to get through it. They remain upright. The dive pressure isn't enough. And yes, Helv looks like they're doing the right thing, diving in after the EMP, and they certainly are, but that doesn't mean that the Orisa is necessarily well-suited to doing so.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you close that distance, because you're looking to follow up on that EMP, you play into the Ramatra's melee and Nemesis from range. And as a result, Team PEPS, with a little bit of sustain still on their side, are able to cut through any follow-up Ataraxia had. And now they don't really have any teeth to this next engagement. They've got the Kitsune Rush, they'll have an amplification matrix in the few, but Hybrid can just EMP to cancel it.
It is on Hybrid to hit that. It's easier said than done. Kitsune Rush out. Hybrid thinking about it. Steps forward. EMP onto 3. Passer, Helv, and Gala are the targets being hunted by PEPS. Fortunately, Molfig's traded out, so there's a solid chance. Oh, Naga got the Blizz eaten by the hack. Ugh. Just an ugly situation all around for PEPS following Molfig going down, but nevertheless, they remain stalwart. They fight through. Naga being the pseudo-tank in Molfig's wake. Kronig bolstering that with an amplification matrix. They've found the tools from the rubble to build up what is a winning fight.
Yeah, it was literally just a tale of 2 amplification matrices. Natlox uses his to keep Ataraxia sustained, but the second that it runs out, Team PEPS still have Cronus, like you said, with the amplification matrix, and even though they don't have the Blizzard, they've still got the Maze presence on the payload, and no one from Ataraxia can actively challenge it. Torbjorn and Sombra, unfortunately, aren't able to burst you down fast enough on an actual brawl fight. And Passer will have the Molten Core health coming up to the Terror Surge in this next engagement, but Naga sees that Gala has gone onto the Zenyatta and chooses to go for the Genji to be able to approach the backline easier.
Lauren's trying to passive charge this EMP. It's taken a little bit too long, but maybe the move is too hasty now. because with the translocator being forced out, Peps know this is their moment to step forward to strike. They knock Health down to half HP. It's going to take 2-3 seconds to get Health back up. Now Lauren, yes, has made their way back into the backline, but Helv still in no state to step forward. Finally begins to reclaim space, but they've lost so much already that this EMP is going to be difficult to hit. They have to use the Terra Surge to set it up, and they do so beautifully.
It's 2 ultimates, though, thrown in. 2 ultimates that you could potentially have used to be able to zone the next proper push from Team PEPS when Team PEPS actually initiate in with an EMP and Annihilation of their own. And they have FD God Sound Barrier that they can use freely without having to worry about Lauren throwing in the Sombra ultimate and ripping all of the extra shielding away. The problem is they lose Hybrid. If they start losing players staggered from just approaching on spawn, Ataraxia are going to be able to charge up not just to Amplification Matrix, but to a Transcendence to keep Hybrid in check.
I mean, 35% is a long way for Gala to go, considering that they basically have to shoot down lane. They don't have any quick way of garnering that ultimate charge. Peps should have an opportunity here. They're staring down Gala, but where's the follow-up? If they try to solo EMP onto that Zenyatta, even Natlox is going to be difficult. That's why they brought the Genji swap in, though, so they would have long-range follow-up to try and make sure that Hybrid's successful in that EMP, and they do make that work. Gala working around the back line, trying to get some sort of Transcendence charge up, but they have to be careful. This stagger is actually quite mean.
Oh, especially because Gala is the one that Ataraxia need to be able to live through not just Annihilation, but also the Blade and Amplification Matrix. If Ataraxia step away from any of this damage Team PEPS can expert, this payload puts itself onto checkpoint.
Core out, zones Cronus away for just a little bit, but position here for Team PEPS is quite nice. Gala 99% to a Transcendence, finally gets it up, pops it, but is it too little too late? Natlox went down. Once this Transcendence is gone, there are no more tools for Ataraxia. A Blade from Naga popped immediately after as he smells blood in the water, and it's blood he will receive. Maybe it's his own though. Let's drop Glow on the side lane. Terra Surge on Cart does maintain presence for Ataraxia, and that's maintained enough time for spawns to come back up for the defending team as well, holding Team PEPS at bay just at the end.
Yeah, really good Terra Surge from Health. Absolute saving grace, because like you said, Naga is just waiting, frothing at the mouth to be able to use the Blade. The second that he baits out that Transcendence from Gala with Natlox going down early. But Natlox actually swaps off of the Baptiste onto the Kiriko to be able to avoid the Genji with the Blade trying to gatekeep those pesky storm doors. And as a result, Naga is not actually able to stop a successful regroup, and Halv has all of the sustainability, the confidence to be able to provide the Orisa ultimate and keep Peps off a point.
Peps now set with the task of defending. They set a strong distance. I will say, you know, Root's not always one that you see finished every single time. I think this defense is more than dual, especially with the compositions they like to run. On the attacking side, playing into the high ground and such, you saw in point A the routing they had to take with that Ramatra just to get anything done. Well, I mean, on defense, in theory, it should be a fair bit easier for them to just set up at these corners, play with their high ground, set that Baptiste up nicely. Ataraxia, the onus is on them to successfully hit these dives while still running that Torbjorn.
Hybrid as well is actually going to be going on to the Ashe to be able to just zone off significant spaces. With the dynamite, you don't even need to be able to successfully like peek the angle. You just lob the dynamite, ignite it, and that's going to significantly limit the line of sight that Gala has to be able to play into, keeping Halv up. And they're not even running the dive. They're going for the Orisa yet again. So high ground control, almost non-existent for this team pushing out of spawn.
Similar iteration to what we got on Midtown as well, when their defense was almost successful, running that double flex sport with the Kiriko and the Baptiste. It offers up a lot in terms of damage, in terms of healing, just raw stats, to be completely honest, but when it comes to reaching that backline of Team PEPS, it's going to be very, very hard.
Oh, well, now we're going to see the composition swaps come through.
Oh my God.
Understand that they're
Just
going
pick
to be
one,
lacking
please.
an inroad into the
I'm begging.
backline as Lauren's onto Echo.
This comp swap, I feel like, is solely to give me a headache more than anything else. They could have just stayed on the Winston earlier, but no. Nevertheless, comp swap comes through. Echo paired with the Tracer, it's a lot of damage for Molfig to contend with, but for right now, they're doing a fantastic job of it.
Oh, that's just no one looking at Hybrid at the moment! Coach Gun forces the Tracer to reposition so you don't get chunked off the map into the dynamite immediately, topped off with a shot. You've already been able to chunk Natlox down too mid-super jump, who was trying to keep Lauren damage boosted up. Now we're going to see a little bit of contest. Both Gala and Lauren trying to take the Ashe off of the push, but the damage has been done. Team PEPS are still able to keep Ataraxia stuffed up towards carriage.
A minute and a half taken off the clock in a close hold is more than I think any team is comfortable giving up in a situation like this. Even if Ataraxia get the win here, they're still coming up short. Great wall there as well. Save Molthig, extend this further. Helv then overextends because of that wall, waiting far too long, eating too much damage, waiting for it to go down. This is a sick close hold by Team PEPS.
Yeah, and even if Ataraxia are able to just throw something like a nano-boosted Winston to try and clear space, Team PEPS, because they've done so much damage, they've been able to build up ultimates, things like the Bob and the Blizzard that they can literally throw into the fight to make sure Ataraxia don't get a move forward.
And they still can't move forward. I'm gonna be honest, Team PEPS just look like a different team when they're on Ramatra. It is night and day for them when they're on this composition. Somebody make the meme, tweet it at us. Hashtag OWPathThePro.
Okay, Pasta onto the Hanzo now has to try and find one of these one-shots. There you go, Dol. You get your request. There's the hashtag that you
I
have
need
to hit
this
up
like
with.
you versus the guy she told you not to worry about, but it's like PEPS on anything else, PEPS on Ramatra compositions, because it is crazy. They're so much more consistent with this. They're so much more organized. It's fantastic.
Oh, the
Hybrid is
annihilation.
locking it down back here. Cronus is letting nothing get done. Bullfig's having a billion damage thrown at him, and it's but a flesh wound.
You didn't even need to pop Annihilation. Primal's
crazy.
past the Ramatra trying to find any space, any disruption to the backline so the Ram doesn't get to just sustain it in the face of every single Ataraxia and Squishy. And they don't even need to use the ultimate. Now we're going to see a Hybrid cleared by the one shot from Pasta, and Nano Boost on to help to try and capitalize off of that one pick, as PEPS finally showing some weakness.
I mean, 53 seconds left on a close hold is hardly what I would attribute to weakness, Mox, but I suppose it's the only sign that they're getting.
They bleed, they can be hit, they can go get sent back to spawn, but what they can do is hold on to
we got 60
ultimates.
meters more of Route 66 to go. I don't know if they're getting toppled over anytime soon.
Oh, I don't think they are, because they did the one smart thing that they could do in that situation when you lose players. They held on to Annihilation. They're going to have Blizzard in an overtime fight, and Ataraxia do not have a single ultimate they can use to peel for any aggression PEP show. It has to be an early pick from Pasta, but he's chopped down by a T-God!
Yeah, I know. This is PEPS' map. A phenomenal pick for them. Ataraxia's choice, but PEPS have made it their pick. Ataraxia swing back with a nice dive from Helv. Cronus gets shut down. Swaps prove worthy of attacking into this. They're still not done with this point A yet, and the overtime wick is extended by Molthig.
Still another fight, though. They have been able to sustain long enough to try to match ultimate economy with Team PEPS, but it's not enough, or it's another early pick that we have to see come through from them. They're pushing aggressively up to try and find just that, as Team PEPS are coming into this contest with 4 ultimates and no reserve to hold on to any.
Not just 4 ultimates, but 4 zoning ultimates. 4 ultimates that push Ataraxia off of the card. They're not just damage ultimates, they're area ultimates. Blizzard keeps them off, Annihilation keeps them off, Amp Matrix keeps them off. Like, every tool was perfectly suited to finishing that off, and it's no surprise. PEPS set themselves up nicely with some good macro play early on, and what was a ridiculous full hold. And now they find themselves ahead in the series after what? We think back to map 1, Mox. I was saying that was dominant from Ataraxia. Map 1 was dominant from Ataraxia. They looked insane. They looked like they had Team PEPS in a box, and now it's the other way around.
Yeah, because PEPS had an absolute... We can't describe it anywhere else. Pixel perfect defense of it. A lot of the time we see teams try and go for that really aggressive train carriage hold, and it bites them in the back because it just means that they get decimated trying to run onto a team that have faster respawns, and even if they're able to find 1 kill, their ultimate economy isn't really that far ahead of the other team, but because they're able to just suffocate Ataraxia out of so much time, even when they start losing players, Ataraxia forced to throw ultimates in just to be able to find any distance on that payload. Team PEPS hold on because, like you said, the composition that they're running is absolutely amok. It is armed to the teeth with zoning ultimates. So even if you're losing distance, losing players, all you have to do is make sure that you take enough fights that Ataraxia burn themselves out of abilities and ultimates before we hit into overtime, that you're always going to have 1 extra contest and come in with every single ultimate primed, ready to go and take control of every single angle in one fell swoop. And there is nothing that Ataraxia can do to stop it.
It's difficult, and it doesn't get any easier. I mean, Hurix touches all the time on the strength or the lack of relative strength of the pick of map when you head into number 4. And yes, I think there's a nice thing of, okay, virtually anywhere, if they want to go back to the Winston, they can do that. But there's not a bad map in the push pool for PEPS, it feels, right? The Ramatra, Esperanza, New Queen Street, Coliseo, fine enough everywhere if they want to run it. If they don't want to run the Winston, they don't have to. Yes, generally considered, like, you go to Esperanza, you want to see the Winston, but between these two teams, I don't think that applies. I think what applies is Comfort, and Comfort says that you can run Ramatra on virtually every single one of these maps, and so the only way out is through for Ataraxia.
Yeah, I could see maybe a new Queen Street pick just so they can try and push this Torbjorn to the forefront again, because that is where they look the most strongest, where they're able to find value with the Torbjorn. Esperanza as well, pretty open for that Torbjorn pick purely because just a lot of spacing potential that there is there, like you said. However, it's not going to get any easier. Ramatra composition, if PEPS are looking at how strong and dominant these Ramatra matchups have been, they're 100% going to just stick to these cannons, stick to pushing this Ramatra really aggressively into the faces of Ataraxia, and we're going to see an Esperanza pick being fielded, but the same problem being posed. Are we going to finally see an answer to that solution? Because it was not there on Route 66.
I mean, the fortunate part is that Esperanza is a more dynamic map. It plays more to that Winston, so you have more high ground to play with, more opportunity to kind of play the aggressor into a team PEPS that is going to struggle a little bit with the scenery around here. Like I said, Ramatra can be played, but Esperanza is certainly one of the most Winston-centric maps that we have in the pool right now, and so there is even a chance that PEPS themselves goes back to the Winston just because of the strength of the pick on this map.
Yeah, we could, like you said, potentially see it, even though like the Ramatra has been so dominant. They may just want to prioritize the Winston so that if Health goes for a Winston and we do see that dive come through, Molf can match it. We're going to be able to see the high ground control for both of these teams because Ramatra doesn't have that ability to be able to fluidly move. He can fluidly move from range to melee, but he can't actively move his own physical body. And as a result, lacking that presence can sometimes really eat into the space that a lot of the rest of your team have to feel safe, especially on a place where your backline a lot of the time wants to position themselves on those high ground bridges so that they're pretty unreachable for the rest of the enemy team to actually be able to take advantage of. And if you don't run a Winston when the other team is running that Winston, that's next to impossible to be able to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, tensions are high, especially for Ataraxia, where so much is on the line. To understand that you're coming into a map where it's almost a rock, paper, scissors at the beginning, and where the first fight is so vital as it is on push, it's really tricky. They're going to have to approach this first fight with a lot of hesitation, so as to not position themselves wrong for the composition that does come out from PEPS.
And that is the true danger of a composition like Dive, because sometimes you don't even really realize that one of your players is vulnerable and out of position until it's too late, and the Dive has really quickly just been able to pounce on them. There's a reason why when we talk to players, they say, yeah, we're going to be able to take advantage of other teams' stupid mistakes. That is essentially the name and game of Dive. If a team doesn't make a stupid mistake in terms of positioning, you force them to make one in terms of that. And the Ramatra composition, while it is brilliant at that poke phase and brilliant at being able to just steam run down some of these teams, it's not that good at properly being able to take advantage of those in the spur of the moment players where they are a little bit too far out of position from the rest of their team.
Said we expected some variance in the comps. That's exactly what we're getting. May Sombra coming out from PEPS, something that they've been quite big fans of in recent memory, especially into the Winston compositions. It offers up a lot to the table. It's going to stop a lot of those dives. Their objective is to kind of sit here as long as they can and build up a lot of that charge. Ataraxia will do the same, though. If they're approaching correctly, they should be able to hold neutral for a long time here, build up that nano boost, and then look to engage with it. But it's a lot easier said than done, especially when you're talking about a team PEPS that has so much lethality.
Calva's done nothing, by the way. He's been hacked, he's been trapped in Vortex, he hasn't been able to dive. Gala's been able to build up 21% of the nano, but Ataraxia just don't have any space as a result.
Well, I mean, as long as Ataraxia can hold that back high ground, the bridge where you can see the Ana that Cronus is shooting at right now, that's the main part of the map that they need to maintain until they get a nano boost online. But that I mean, short-lived is an understatement. They walled up to it. They walled up to it, Mox. Team Peps, nah, they're just on one.
That's why you run the Mei. Especially in that first fight, because when you actually look at what the objective is, it's too wide to properly be able to take advantage of the Mei while being able to isolate the player out. They can simply walk around it. What you're able to take advantage of is boosting this Ramattra up into those harder to reach places so that Gala on the Ana doesn't get to find the safety. To be able to just use the face tank damage that Alva's taking to be able to build up the nano boost. It's so smart, and it means that Ataraxia is just denied one crucial avenue and Gala is denied high ground hold. He's gone.
Yeah, Gala's dead again. I mean, that's likely the fight. Peps, that had to be a set play from them in the previous fight. They've definitely practiced that. Gala looked like Gala was playing out of last week. I mean, the look of surprise on that on his face, my god.
You know, in the UK, we have a brand of apples called Galas, and it feels like he's just being picked like an apple from a tree at the moment, right? It's like Isaac Newton, the apple's just falling to the ground, and every single time Team Peps is discovering the Ana's position and taking him out.
See how long Gala can live this time. Time to kill has been surprisingly low for a composition that shouldn't, in theory, have that much gap closed, but Peps have proven us wrong twice now in that regard. Ataraxia, the team being dove upon time and time again, are nearly up onto an EMP, which could be the silver lining here, but getting that EMP into position is going to be so hard because the problem that every composition runs into on this map is that you have to attack into this high ground. And this high ground, even for a Winston, is tough to push into.
They've got the nano boost, but health before he can make the jump is hacked, and it has to jump back to his team.
Oh, that's nano boost already?
Oh, no!
You hate that. You need that nano boost to attack the high ground, and it's just gone. It had to be used to save health. It's a difficult decision for Gala to make. They didn't want to just sit there and lose the monkey, but now pushing into that high ground again, it's nigh on impossible without an EMP or a nano boost. Unfortunately, they still have the former of those, but you would have loved both.
Where's the follow-up? That's the problem. You look at this from a hypothetical stance for Ataraxia. Lawrence got EMP, yes, but Team Peps have 1, 2, 3, 4 ultimates that they can use to be able to circumvent any follow-up, one of which being counter EMP that Hybrid might actually just take into his own hands and EMP before Ataraxia does.
I love how content Peps are to just sit here as well. FD got taken out by the EMP though, and all of a sudden Ataraxia have a solid chance of getting back in this one. It looked desperate considering the ultimates they were going into, but finding the Lucio was target numero uno for Ataraxia, and they got that done.
They've also swapped Gala off of the more vulnerable Ana and onto a Kiriko, where you're going to be a lot more mobile and able to hold your ground if you do get jumped upon by Hybrid looking to turn these fights into 1v1s and immediately take a support off the table, or just force out so much peel that Ataraxia essentially just lose too many resources to be able to stand up to Team Peps.
Now the fight gets harder though. That high ground advantage isn't there yet because the cart hasn't pushed far enough for it to be that way. So Peps have a 5-man aggression onto the high ground with zoning ult aplenty. So again, this high ground should rightfully be theirs. A nice ultimate from Health though. A separate away Baptiste. Unfortunately, you're playing against Sombra. And Sombra's a lot of fun to play against, especially for Winston's in Primal Rage. You can't hear the sarcasm in my voice. It's your own fault.
They did that without using an ultimate.
And this is just going to get worse. I love the understanding from Peps though. They don't even have to win fights. They just have to sit here in this position and hold this high ground until 5 minutes have passed.
That is literally a rally proc from Ataraxia's side after panicking from Molfig in Nemesis form running at them. Hybrid then uses the EMP to be able to capitalize on that moment, and Team Peps have just cleft open any coordination that Ataraxia might have been able to find themselves in, as Naga is holding on to the Blizzard. Helv again gets hacked before he's able to find this space. Hybrid on this Sombra, like you said, is just making this Winston's life an absolute hellish experience.
You dive in, Kitsune rush out, and you're right in Blizzard. Sound barrier response. This should be Team Peps' fight through and through. They caught everybody in the Blizzard. The sound barrier saved everybody on Team Peps. It's flowchart gameplay from the team in white. There's so little that Ataraxia can do at this point in the game.
The one thing that Ataraxia can take advantage of is the fact that in that fight, Team Peps overlapped Amplification Matrix and Sound Barrier. As a result, Lauren doesn't have to go through the checklist that every Sombra traditionally has to go to when facing up against the Baptiste and the Lucio. You're shortened down to just hit the Baptiste so Lamp isn't that.
Okay, sure. Right, like this fight, There isn't a checklist for EMP, but let's assume EMP wins the fight. Okay, then what? Peps are still gonna like come up with their next rotation. Naga goes down here. Wolfig to follow. It should be a win for Ataraxia. They connected with what they needed to connect with. Lauren taking down Molfig. Atlox did get traded, but the spawns are closer for Ataraxia. Peps are somehow fighting their way through this. They've holed up. This is ratty stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they are cockroaches just refusing to die in this corner right now. And Ataraxia overextend into it. Oh, it's disaster. They've kidnapped the cart, but that's just not super important at this point in time. Peps don't need distance. Peps need time off the clock, and they're sucking it away bit by bit.
They need Natlox, but Natlox went down early and hasn't got sound barrier, and even got hacked as he came out of spawn, so he doesn't have the Lucio ultimate up to be able to counter EMP.
It's so ugly. 4 more up for Peps, and it's exactly what I said, right? You win with EMP, and then what? Peps come up with another 4 ultimates to just lock you in. Peps can afford to go fight for fight with you. You need to win 2 in a row, and that's the difficulty for Ataraxia, is they have the tools to win exactly 1 fight, but it's the second that's always going to get them. Peps extend their lead, spending both the support ultimates in it, and now look to move forward. They have an Annihilation and EMP to finish things off here. They want a full cap to put an exclamation point on this series, but Molfig goes down before the Annihilation can be popped. Hybrid spends the EMP before Molfig can follow up on it. Disaster for Team Peps. Now, this is what Ataraxia needed. The door is open. If they can clean this up without spending EMP and then spend EMP to win this next fight, now we're talking about something that they can actually build into a push.
They have to be careful that they don't lose players to Hybrid, though. Hybrid now does go down. Gala has that Kitsune Rush available, but Team Peps are still stalling with time.
God, you see that 1080 by FD God? It's like major bonus points.
Pass is on the Tourbillon. This team has had enough of the Sombra and the Lucio.
More than okay. Like we said, they've got tools to keep this push going. The ultimate economy is finally swung back into at least a decent position for Ataraxia, but it's still not good because you're playing Reinhardt into the Blizzard, which is a recipe for getting frozen every single time. They've got to connect early with this EMP if they want to win. Wolfig has Annihilation in the back pocket should they need it. Thinks better of using it, but goes down before they could. Lauren traded it out before they can pop the EMP, though now Ataraxia are missing a critical tool. They have to finish this fight off without the ultimate. It's only Elbow Grease they're working with, but that seems to be enough for now. With Cronus down and Naga basically just contesting the cart, there is plenty of play to be had for Ataraxia, and they still have the EMP to be the trump card in the next fight.
Yeah, Molfig went down. That was the crucial pick that Ataraxia were able to pick up, since without the Ramatra, there is no Annihilation, there is no punishment for Lauren not being there to be able to EMP. As Ataraxia still holding on, 1 fight to go before they're probably going to be able to take control of these early spawns, as Team Peps actually have to pull a little bit further back. Molfig gets hacked out by Lauren, who gives up the forward position for EMP to keep the Ramatra at bay a little bit longer, and now sets up in motion the ultimate.
Yeah, you don't need a forward position to EMP this, though. Because Peps are forced through a choke point no matter which way they go, the EMP's pretty free, but unfortunately the follow-up's not there. The wall from Molfig is beautiful. Oh my god, Naga helps save the team as well. The EMP completely whiffs, blocked, caught by Team Peps, and the counterpunch is just disgusting.
And this is the problem. Ataraxia were expecting the EMP to be big. They needed the EMP to be big. Without the EMP, they had no fight window. And now we're right back to ultimate economy, potentially swinging in the favor of Team Peps. Hybrid gets an early lamp to be able to keep himself up so that he has EMP in his pocket, but now he needs to hit Natlox with it to cancel out the impact of Sound Barrier.
It's now or never for Ataraxia to send us on to a map 5 or Team Peps to end it right here. Gala down, spells the ladder, Helve to follow. Victory lane is in sight for Team Peps as they race across the finish line. Naga being kept at arm's length away from this cart. All Ataraxia can do is just get straggle touches in, but Team Peps will be taking away the series 3-1. A phenomenally strong final map, and Esperances, they strong-arm their way through it. I mean, 5 minutes had to be ripped off the clock there just by holding that one high ground and ultimate economy advantage. The macro play was immaculate from PEPS.
The May will set play to make sure that the Ramatra is able to challenge that
I forgot about that. Yeah, that was so long ago, but so sick.
The Brig and the Ana. We talked about it in length before we even started this game. It's so good!
Bro, God was just like, oh dear God.
So far, the high ground, we have Wolves, we have Parkour, and Molfig has many, many punches to launch into your face. It's so good because from that one move, it's a domino effect. It really is. A butterfly just spreads its wings and denies Ataraxia any form of safety for that backline for 3 fights in a row, well past 3 fights in a row afterwards from that one move alone.
It's like 3-4. They pushed all the way to the end of the map, and then it just kept getting more awkwardly long. Like, the time factor that they ripped off with that snowball was just ridiculous. It basically won them the map in its own right. Finishing it off was a matter of just getting the ultimates countering. The last fight, though, was really good. Like I said, Molfig and Naga keeping the EMP at bay, managing to help a lot of the team avoid it so that the follow-up couldn't really get in, and making sure that the ultimate that should have kept the push going there for the opposing side didn't, was massive. It wasn't just the push in the beginning. Honestly, their play throughout Esperanza was some of the best that we saw in the entire series, and I'm really glad to see it end on such a high note for PEPS.
It's one that you have to watch out for, but I will say that Maywall with the Ramatra, while it was effective now, other teams...
You only get that once. You get that one time.
You get that one time. That one time where it works. And then every other team that you run into is now going to be expecting a Ramatra to just pop his head above the parapet and say hello.
Yeah, I'll take it. They cashed in there one time while I was lucky enough to be watching. I have no complaints,
I
Mog.
promised
You know
you a lack of Winston. I told you, come to EU. We have Reinhardt, we have Ramatra, we have Diva, we have Orisa.
This was great. I've had a fantastic time, Mox. I appreciate you having me, but I also know we're not quite done yet. We've got an interview coming up in just a bit where we can talk to these players a little bit about some of those fun comps they were playing.
Oh, hello, fancy meeting you here. It's so nice to see ya. Are you ready to survive the wastelands? Then you'll need to bring your shotgun, your axe, and of course, your knife for your sharp wit, if you get my drift. Hey, whoa. Hold on there. Don't forget to pick up your Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Yeah, gearing up is as easy as connecting your Battle.net account to Twitch. And after that, watching the Overwatch Contender Summer Series will contribute to your drop progression, letting you claim your own wasteland-ready Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Oh, that's right. It's time to rampage. Now, get out there and slay with the Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Okay, take care now. See you in chat.
Hey, and welcome back, y'all. We've got an interview, and as promised, it's with one of the players from the winning team. We got Cronus in to talk a little bit about what was probably a pretty relaxing final map there for you. Let's start from the front and work our way back here with what we just saw. That Esperanza was one of the most dominant maps that I've seen in a minute. Obviously, we've seen teams full cap the map and like just run through in one push, but the way with which you guys just constricted them and sucked the life out of them on that Esperanza map, I don't think there was a single point where they ever had an ultimate economy advantage nor a positional advantage for like the entire thing. What locked in for you guys?
Well, we just identified the enemy team's weaknesses, right? They're a full counter dive team, right? So their strength is playing into dive, so we just rolled out the rush comp, and if they try to go normal dive, we just win, you know?
So then, talking about just winning, even though they had a Sombra, it felt like every single EMP that they were able to find never really actually won them the fight. Do you find as a Lucio, you've sort of moved away from different ways of positioning for Sound Barrier now that EMP is expected to just hit one person and just evaporate them, as opposed to going for the full team squad wipe?
Yeah, going for like counter beats isn't that great, to be honest, for EMP. You'd rather like have a lamp or something. You'd rather just beat to keep you in the fight, the tempo, really. But yeah, just and like in Overwatch 1, you don't play Lucio the same. I'm not the Lucio player anyway. I don't really know. I mean,
fortunately, you had to just sit back and relax for some time there. What was it like having high ground the entire series? Was it straightforward? Was it something that was too difficult to hold into the Sombra sometimes? It seemed like you had no issues.
It's really easy because, I mean, they play Torb most of the maps, so no pressure on me. It's only a Sombra, and their Sombra Monkey can't kill me alone. You need the Tracer to follow up, and if they don't do it properly, we win.
So then, talking about that Torbjorn, it felt like the only map where the team really struggled was on that first control point where Pasta was running the Torbjorn and Hybrid wasn't finding the openings. On the Echo, was there a specific reason that you struggled with the Torbjorn on that map more than others?
Yeah, our dive's just not clean yet, so we're just like, we're trying to play like the meta comps, right, and we're focusing on that, getting good at dive for playoffs, you know? But for now we just play to our strengths for the rest of the series. But we want to play like dive and stuff more, it's more skilled.
Yeah, I mean, with your guys' standings, you talk about trying to pick up the wins before playoffs. Do you feel a little bit more comfortable with your standings after that win, or after the game earlier today up against EXO? How do you feel about your placement overall?
I mean, that win wasn't that important. We needed one of the other 3 games, so we lost like 3 games before this to Twisted, SRP Check, and X Oblivion. I think we needed one of those wins, but I mean, we can still get a good placement if we win the rest.
We saw you playing a couple of different supports as well, things like the Baptiste, the Ana. What do you feel has a better impact in terms of meta at the moment, given so many teams seem to try and pair Baptiste and Ana with a Ramatra?
I think that Ana is strictly better, to be honest, in most situations. I think Ana's just straight up better, but we're not like comfortable on it yet, so we just went comfort comp. But Ana just has some way more impact, and you can pocket people better.
And now that you guys are getting a little bit more comfortable, or at least you're settling into comfort comps to try and get some of these last wins and make sure you qualify and do all that, what do the upcoming weeks look like for you guys? Is it going to be more shifting of your composition, or are you going to try and settle in until that 2-week break?
Well, we're just going to keep practicing to get good at every comp, so we're basically uncounterable, right? We just want to get good at like every comp that matters in the meta. We're not just going to be like a rush one trick team, you know? It's not a way to win contenders.
Talking about ways to win contenders then, how do you plan on dealing with teams like Twisted Minds, who obviously have a very expansive composition where they can run both traditional meta but also flex onto things like the Pharah and the Echo?
I think the key is like Sombra. People don't really play Sombra much in Europe, so if we get a step ahead on that, we're good, you know.
Hey, I mean, Hybrid's been putting up good numbers. You guys have been putting up good numbers today. Congrats again on the win, man. A strong turnaround in the series, and then, like I said, a huge exclamation point to finish it off. So
yeah,
it's a real high note for you guys going into next week, and I wish you the best.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man.
All right, Mox, that doesn't leave us with much other than a few replays, some standings, a few thank yous, as well as I think maybe next week's schedule. I'm not sure if we have it quite yet, but nevertheless, it was a fun couple of matches today, wasn't it?
It was a fun couple of matches. It was some really dominant matches too that we got to see. Team PEPS looking incredibly strong with some really close holds. Like that close hold on Route 66 might be one of the cleanest defenses of that map I've seen in a hot minute, definitely from the EU side of things. But talking about the EU side of things, I do believe we actually do have a schedule, or at least we can look back at today's schedule, because it was Raspberry Racers versus Play in that first match where Raspberry Racers found a 3-0 victory, and then this second match that we got to see, Ataraxia looking incredibly strong on that control point, but then Team PEPS, when they turned away from the dive and they went for the more comfort picks, just found such a renewed footing.
It's interesting. These maps are very polarized in one way or the other. Raspberry Racers versus Play, every map ended up going kind of the full distance of the map. Both teams were very much attacking sided, and then Ataraxia and Team PEPS came in, and both teams nearly full held Midtown, which was crazy. Looking forward, though, we do have more games coming up on July 24th. Raspberry Racers up against Team PEPS to open things up. And then, of course, you guys get a first look at 04 Dash taking on Ataraxia, who we just got to witness.
That's going to be a really fun matchup. Raspberry Racers versus Team PEPS. If either of those teams take us to Midtown, you know that we're going to be in for one slow burn, but I am 100% here to see how those teams interact, because it's also going to be some pretty important matches for both of those teams, right? When you're running middle of the pack, you need to be able to find these wins. You need to be able to keep that map differential as well under check as much as you possibly can, so that you can try and align yourself into a position of the top 8 and make it into playoffs, because we're getting real close to that cutoff.
Yeah, we're running out of time. I think next week, right when things start getting mission critical for these teams to find the success they need. Either way, it's been fun watching this with you guys. There's more matches next week, but there's also more matches today. North American Contenders is going on, so hit that subscribe button, hit the follow button wherever you might be. You can do that. We've got a schedule for you. Afterlife versus Rift is going on up first, followed by Wisp up against O3 Splash. Holy cow, that second one's going to be crazy. I'm bringing popcorn for that. I'm buying snacks for the whole family.
I'm going to be staying up late to watch it. It's probably, I'm hoping it's going to be a 5-map series. I'm going to be disappointed if it's not a 5-map series. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I want to go to bed at like 5 a.m. being like, oh man, wow, that was such a good game of Overwatch Contenders. Mostly so that skin drops as well, but also hype Overwatch for everyone to tune into.
There's going to be good stuff. Like I said, follow, subscribe, do what you can. Tweet at us on Twitter. Follow OWPath the Pro. Do everything you need to do. You guys know what's up. Be here for a couple hours, and see you then.
You like solving problems. Problems like how to stop that tracer from deleting your backline. I know just what you're thinking. You'll bring a turret. But y'all can't solve all your problems by simply bringing an extra friend to the battlefield. For that, you need the Contenders Torbjorn skin. Solve your problems by connecting your Battle.net account to Twitch. After that, watching Overwatch Contenders Summer Series will contribute to your drops progress, letting you claim your Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin. Even your turret gets an upgrade. Warning, the Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin does not come with extra or upgraded turrets. Build instructions will not be provided. By picking Torbjorn, you waive a claim towards any destroyed turrets. No refunds, no exchanges, and no take-backsies.